I want to share about a rock bottom moment that I had. By the time this episode comes out, it will have been a week ago. So I'm out the other side, but I feel like it's really important to talk about these moments because I am sure every one of you listening has had a rock bottom moment, probably several times in your life. And not many people will talk about it because we live in a culture and in a society that really taught us to be ashamed of our humanity. And so people say, I'm fine, all is good, chin up, all of that. And this isn't about, sometimes you get the spiritual realm that comes in of, high vibe, always be positive. And all of it to me is denying our humanity. Now, when we go into our humanity, I don't mean wallowing in it because that's another form of, that can also create stagnancy, as can spiritual bypassing, as can ignoring and neglecting, negoring. We have to move through our experience, our humanity, our emotions, our feelings. The only way out is through. But the reason why I write on social media, the reason why I do this podcast is because I really want to support normalizing our humanity, that it's not something that we need to be ashamed of. And so that we all don't have to feel so alone in it, because I know that you have hard times, as I have hard times. So I want to share and talk about when we hit rock bottom. And what happens out of that is quite interesting. So let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So people might have a different word for rock bottom or a different connotation. But I'm pretty sure we've all been there. And it's different to me than hitting a wall, because rock bottom is when you really just can't take anymore. It's the point where you go, enough, this is too much. And excuse me, I'm sure you've heard the saying that the universe will only hand you as much as you can handle. And that always kind of makes me chuckle because it's like, whoa, it's really testing me. But even with that, it's like, okay, let's say it's giving me what I can handle. But even that, like even if I can handle a lot, and if I review my life, boy, can I really handle quite a lot. But even with that, there's a point where actually we get to say back to the universe, you know what? Enough. I'm drawing the line in the sand. This is too much. I need a break. This is unrelenting. Like my system cannot take it anymore. My sweet, poor little human self cannot take it anymore. Enough. And there's a very interesting thing that comes out of that. So one is rock bottom doesn't happen overnight, right? Rock bottom is something that's the accumulation of our struggle, our stress, our worry, things being hard, maybe things really going wrong too many times, or we're straining ourselves. It can be a mental overload. It can be an emotional overload. Like if we're carrying a lot, going through a lot, it can just feel like when we've had that point of enough of like, I can't carry anymore. I can't hold anymore. I can't process anymore. It's like the system goes, basta, enough, And on one hand, I think we could say, okay, it signifies that we've been going too much and we need to pause. But I also think right now, there's kind of the micro and the macro, the individual and the collective. And I think it's a very, really challenging time, because I know personally that a lot of people, and actually this past week, it will be almost a week or two once this gets released, have been really, really challenging for people. There was a week that was really, 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 really hard. And it was around the full moon and the first eclipse. And now we're coming up for the second eclipse. Which will have just gone yesterday once this comes out. And so it's a very intense window for any of you that follow that kind of stuff. So the thing is there's what we're going through personally, and there's also what we're going through collectively. And that is not to be underestimated, because that does affect us. You know, we are waking up to the fact that we are not just individuals in our own kind of nuclear pods. It appears like that, but actually we are completely interconnected. And if you go into the higher spiritual, perspective of it all, we are all one, we are all connected, we are all drops of the same ocean. And so how could we not feel as like an organism in unto itself? I think about how there's trillions of cells in our body, and they make up a community that is our body, and our body functions, right? So one could say that like this whole collective of human beings, and even the universe itself, is like an organism, right? And we're just the little cells of it. Who knows, right? You could go way down a rabbit hole with all of that. But the point is, everything and everyone is interconnected. So we cannot underestimate the effect that has on us, both positively and negatively. So, but coming back to us as an individual, obviously, in my case, I've been going through a lot because I got so fed up being where I was living. Finally, after years of feeling stuck there, I get myself out. But the process of getting out is big, right? Packing up a house, being kind of completely, well, I want to say homeless, but without a home, and being nomadic and traveling and taking care of my child. And everything it's like, all of my neural pathways are having to fire in a completely different way because I'm so out of routine. And a part of that is exhilarating and enlivening and energizing. It's wonderful, right? It's the newness. It's like, oh, my brain and my being and my eyes and my senses get to take in a whole new experience. On the other end of that, the other side of that is it's also really tiring because it's destabilizing. So I've been in this kind of moving forward after years of stagnancy since kind of last, let's call it August. And so of course I'm going to meet my moments of like, I'm tired and I'm not there yet. I'm not even where I want to be to just have proper respite, which for me is when I find home, because we do have an instinct. We have an instinct to need home. And when we're not having home, our nervous system is always kind of firing a little bit, right? I'm for the first time since December, and even like I could say September, October, November, December, were not super relaxing because I was packing a house. But this is the first time that I am in a place for a month and I can actually take my clothes out of a suitcase and I can hang them up. And it's like, wow, this is amazing. I can take it out of a suitcase. But even then, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm going to have to move again. I have to find the next place because the time is going to go past. So all of this to say there's a buildup of energy. And so there's a buildup of, it creates exhaustion, basically. So my last weekend, it was Easter weekend, and the energies were very intense. The weather was all over the shop where I am now. It would be like sunny, rainy, stormy, windy, sunny, rainy, stormy, wind. It was everywhere. And my mood kind of followed that. And I was in this not very nice place that didn't look anything like the photos. And I was dealing with a very passive, aggressively rude estate agent through email because there was a rancid smell in the kitchen that they had to come the next day to fix. And it was not relaxing, and I was already tired, and it just was like, wow, this is super shitty. And then I still had the anticipation of I had to move again for the third time on Easter Monday, and just, packing up the car and then unpacking the car. And then I was going to have to drag things up 3 flights of stairs. And the anticipation, this is what I recognize every time, and you get it very acutely when you're traveling because it happens so often. But the anticipation of something is what creates the overwhelm. It's the fear of what it could be like, what it might be like. Will I have the energy for it? How will it go? All of that is what creates overwhelm, anxiety. It's all in the future. It's all a figment of our imagination. And the thing is, it's hard because in the moment, it's hard to just say, we can say to ourselves, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And I recognize for myself that there's a part of me, just a part. I like to talk in parts. There's a part of me that is very accustomed to worrying, right? So it worries about what could happen, and it especially worries from the perspective of I have to do all of this on my own, and it's a struggle and it's tiring. So that Monday morning, I packed everything up. It was okay because I'm used to it, right? So I did it. My daughter even helped me a little bit. And then I had a moment of respite because this woman for the new Airbnb that I was moving into was just such an angel. She met me at the parking lot because I couldn't drive my car up to the door because it's in the old town. So that was another thing. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna every time I have to do my grocery shopping, I'm gonna have to walk it in. And I did it yesterday for the first time, and it's okay. It's tiring, but it's okay. So again, the mind thinks, I'm not going to be able to handle this. It's too much. And the mind thinks of everything all at once. And there's the overwhelm, right? It's not just in the moment, take it by the moment, step by step by step. We think of the whole climb at once. So anyway, this woman was really kind. She met me in the parking lot. I unloaded all of my stuff into her car. And luckily, she had the same exact car that I had. So the proportions were exactly the same. So I was able to fit everything in, which was amazing. And then she drove me to the place and helped me carry my stuff up 3 flights of stairs. And I just felt so grateful. I was like, oh, finally, some support. That's been my big thing. It's like, oh, just some support. And I was tired still. Like I was really grateful. It's a really cute apartment. Really loud because it's like on a tapas alley, so there's people, and that's a whole other thing. It's really loud at night, and then you get the rubbish truck and the street cleaner at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you have the people upstairs with 2 kids that sound more like playing elephants, rolling around and stomping around, and I'm having to get used to sleeping with earplugs and all of these things, but. It's like, I'm in this lovely place now, which was was so refreshing after staying in this really shitty old place. But I was tired, I was strained, and I took out my Berkey filter and I found that in the transit, the filters had broken, and they ain't cheap, folks. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to replace my Berkey filters, which are over 200 euros. And so that was like, okay, fine. I've just spent all of this money for this crappy place for those 3 nights. And now I'm having to, pay for this. And it's another thing that I need to do on my list. And it was just like, fine, take. And this is where I started to get, and I'm familiar with this, I start to get this kind of like, F you, like, fuck you, universe, fuck you, God, like, where are you? Where are my angels? Like, what do you want from me? And actually, I hadn't reached that point just quite yet, but I was in this kind of just, like, I'm tired. Really, do I need another thing going wrong? Because I had had this whole interaction with this estate agent, and that was really tiring because I try to communicate in a way that's clear but kind. And so that takes a lot of consciousness, right? To not just ream at someone and just spit out like nasty words, but I was trying to be kind and conscientious, but also to the point. And it was just, there was no winning with this woman whatsoever. So that took a lot of my energy. And so I was draining. I could feel all of the energy draining from my being. And so I'm tired, and I'm talking to my daughter and my mother, over video chat. And my daughter brings me a snack, and I'm chewing, and I have a veneer, and the veneer pops off. And that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just started crying. And it was everything. That was the trigger point. That was the I cannot take any more. I'm exhausted because it's firstly, it's like at the front of my mouth. So it's like, when I speak or when I smile, it's like a little like yellow shark's tooth right at the front, and a part of growing older that's kind of nice is you get to this point of like, I don't care. I'm not at like bolognese stain sweatpant going out into society stage, but it's more just like, what, it's okay. If somebody wants to think that I'm ugly, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem, but still it's my mouth. It's my, you can't chew the same way. You can't talk the same way. You don't look the same. And then it was like, I'm in a new place. I don't have a dentist. all of that. So here we go, more to do, more overwhelm. And my mom had literally just been saying to me, you know what? Take these days and just rest. Like, just rest. Don't think about the home yet. Don't think about doing research. Just take the day to rest. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then that's when the tooth popped up and I just was like, middle finger to the sky. What the hell? Here I'm meant to be resting and now I'm going to have to deal with this. Like, why? And so I was crying and I was really looking up like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? And it's so ironic that the day before I had just released a podcast about not giving the universe too much power, right? Feeling that it's praising or punishing us. But here's the thing, when we hit those moments that feel like rock bottom, that feel like, you know what, this is too much, it's really easy to say, you're doing this to me. You're doing this to me. Screw you. Stop it. Right? It's really easy to blame and to point the finger. And the reason is because we feel like we have no control. We feel like things are happening to us. And sometimes that really is the reality. You know, you could say all of this is just a simulation anyway. Don't take it so seriously. Laugh it off. But the thing is, it doesn't make it feel any less real. It feels very real. Even if we die tomorrow and wake up and we're like, whoa, that was like a dream. That was really a dream that just went like that. It still feels very real. You know what it's like. You dream in the night. It feels really real until you wake up and you're like, oh God, okay, it was just a dream. And I think that's what life is like. We die and we wake up from this dream. We come back to our soul self and we're like, wow, that was a trip. That was your dream. My dream was quite crazy. So we have to honor and acknowledge that it feels very real. And so when we're met with challenge after challenge after challenge, and we're stretched and our stamina is waning and our resilience is waning and we're just getting fatigued, it's really easy to go into this is all happening to me and I can't take it anymore, you know? So yeah, I'm having this kind of like, I really can't. And it was to the point of, and I've met these places in my life many, many times where I just was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I do not like being human. It's so ironic because I love humanity. I will fight for humanity. But I don't like being human. And I know that I'm not from here. I know that my first memory is in the womb. And well, actually, that's not my first memory. I do have memories of being in utero, but being in the birth canal. And I was a week late. I was 23-hour labor. And in the end, I think they had to pull me out with forceps. But I remember being in the birth canal and it was quite cramped. And I just went, okay, here we go again with that tone. It wasn't, I know I've shared this before. It wasn't that like, woohoo, I'm really excited. Let's go. Earth, human. Yes, I love it. It was like, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what I'm here to go through. I've been here many times. It's not the easy. It's the, a lot of spiritual people will say it's the hardest place to incarnate. It is the school of life. This is where the soul comes to learn and to grow. And it's, at least up until this point, at least for thousands and thousands of years, a lot of it comes through their struggle and their suffering. And I'm really hoping that this paradigm is shifting, that like the kind of consciousness in human form has gone, okay, well, yeah, we've learned that lesson. Like not even lesson, we've had that experience. And now we can move out of suffering and struggle and really come into a state of love and compassion and joy and collaboration and remember the oneness that we used to have. And I do believe that civilizations have experienced that on this planet, but we've been in a very, very long cycle. They call it the Kali Yuga cycle. I think I said that right. It sounds funny. When a word comes out, and you're like, did I say that right? And so we've been in kind of the dark ages and we're coming out of that now. So I've lost my train of thought. Where did I go? Where did I want to go with that? So I remember being in the birth canal and knowing what I was getting into. And so I've always had this, like, just knowing I'm not from here. There's a part of me that really doesn't like this human experience, and I don't really like being here. And I get very homesick. And some of you will completely relate to what I'm talking about, and some of you might not understand it at all, and that's okay. But I get homesick, and so sometimes when I get to this point of enough, I just want to go home. And my grandfather had just passed a few days before, and I wasn't close to him, so it wasn't anything emotional. In fact, I would say that it felt more like a ancestral bond tie knot that was released. I felt it actually as a very, very positive thing. But like my mom had gone through a lot with it, even though she wasn't emotional about it either, because he was not the nicest person. He's not the easiest or nicest person. But he had just passed, and I remember when I was on the ground crying, just being like, I cannot take this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And I said, I wish it had been me. I wish it had been me that died. I wish I could just go back home. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have a child that I need to be here and be a mother to, I would never kill myself. This is the thing. I don't go into depths of depression where it's like, I'm going to take my life. I just don't ever go there. But there are times where I'm just like, I just want out. I want to be at the end of my life and just be done with this. And in that moment, it does it feel vulnerable to share it? I already shared it on my social media. And actually that's another story I want to talk about. It can feel vulnerable to share these things and to really talk through what the experience is, because we're afraid of being judged, right? Or some people might go, oh my God, she's crazy, or some people might go, she really needs to get her shit together, or oh my God, she's going to try and kill herself. People can jump to conclusions, and they can project, and they can have these beliefs of who they think you are and all of that. And this is a lot of why people don't share. It's because of the shame, right? The shame and the judgment. And even if it's vulnerable to share it, I know that it's part of my life's path and life's purpose is to share the struggle of being human and the joys of being human, but to share the humanity of being human, because we've got to normalize it. We've got to get out of this like pretending. There was a woman that commented on one of my posts that said, she shared like a meme thing and said, this is why it took me so long. And it said something of like, I never, oh God, I wish I could remember it word for word, but basically it was something around, it took me so long to heal because I was pretending that I wasn't hurt. Right. And so that's where most people are. They're pretending that they don't have those feelings. They're pretending that they don't have a wound, that they're not hurting, that they don't have pain or suffering. And here's the thing, y'all, every human being has some kind of wounding, hurt, pain, suffering at some point in their life. Because as I've shared many times before, this is the human arc. This is part of being human. We come in as babies, totally connected, so much the divine. We remember, we don't have the full amnesia yet, but then the amnesia kicks in. We forget who we are. The wounding brings us into human form, and it creates this whole arc and journey where we forget who we are. We have to go through the pain, the struggle, the suffering. We have to dig into ourselves. We might look out, and then we recognize we need to turn in, go into our inner verse, go into our heart, remember who we are through the pain, the struggle, the suffering. And then there's the like, that's the arc. There's the growth. There's where the soul gets to really grow. It's that whole arc of you come in remembering, you forget, you have to re-remember. And in that re-remembering, there's that spark of light, spiritual awakening. I don't want to say enlightenment because that's such a heavily loaded word, but we have that spark of, I've woken up. And it's not just waking up to something new, it's waking up to the remembering of who we truly are. And that's such a thing of beauty. It is such a beautiful moment. I have been so privileged to witness that with my clients. It's such an honor and it's such a gift. And it's why I love my job so much, is that I get to witness that. And it's such a beautiful moment. So there is beauty and poetry in the suffering. And I think this realm is a total paradox. I think it's hell on earth and, bliss and joy in heaven. It is both and everything in between. And I guess that's what makes it so interesting. And I guess that's why there's so much to be able to grow through, because it's complex and it's rich and it's multi-textured and multi-layered, and it'll drive you mad, but it's it's also equally really beautiful. So I keep on going off onto all these tangents, and I need to come back to the center point of where I was. There's just so much. It's such a vast topic. It really, really, really is. So in that moment where I was on the floor, sorry if I lost my train, but it will come back around. I trust it. I just trust it so much now that it's like it'll come back when it's meant to. And here's another thing. I'm going to say something about that. When you stop worrying about what other people think, so I was talking about sharing vulnerably, and the reason why I do it is because I want to normalize being human. People might have their projections, they might judge me, you know. I don't care, because actually there's so many more that will say thank you so much for sharing, because I can relate. I'm going through the same thing. I resonate, and it also gives people the amazing opportunity to be empathic and to connect. And I want to say something about the Facebook post that I had written, but what I want to say first is when you stop worrying about what other people think, you really land in yourself. And when you land in yourself, you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you trust your intuition, you trust what comes through you. So even right now, if I lose my train of thought, some people might go, oh God, I've got that, God, I need to have the script. I never speak with a script, never have, never will. Because I just trust that what needs to come through will come through. And if I lose my train of thought, that's okay, it'll come back around. So there's this whole process of trusting ourselves. And we've been taught so much, trust someone else. Let them be the one that tells you what's right and wrong and good and bad and how you should live your life or how you shouldn't live your life. And, we've been so disempowered, whether that's a parent, a teacher, a peer, government authority, God, doesn't matter. We've been in a paradigm where the external authority has been more important than our internal authority. And so it's a practice, it's a skill, it's a lot of work to come to the point of, you know what, I don't care what other people think. And I don't mean that we become cold and apathetic, because of course we do care because we're interconnected, but the unnecessary caring, right? The concern, the self-doubt, the inhibition, the self-consciousness, the insecurity, all of that is just, I'll let go of that. That's all coming from judgment anyway. So you get to trust yourself more, and that's much more liberating. And then that's what also helps get out of the right and wrong, which I talked about last week. So I want to talk about how when I was just in the depths of that despair, I could really feel like I needed to write, because for me, it really can be like medicine. And also I know when something needs to come through me, because it was literally like, I need to take my computer now and write. And I had to ask my daughter to just go read, because it was like, I need to write right now. And it wasn't just a catharsis for me, but I knew that it was something that I needed to share. And it was a long email, and it was everything that I was going through and everything that I was feeling about just not wanting to be here, not wanting to be human anymore. I'm just fed up. And for me, I'm grateful that, see, even in my astrological chart, apparently, that I can really go into the depths of the shadow. I am not scared to go into the other underworld. And I think, again, that's part of my life's path here, is to really know what it's like to go into the darkness. But I'm always able to pull on a string that brings me back up. So it will always end on a beautiful note. And it's seeing the journey of how what we go through as a human being that can be so uncomfortable and so painful and so hard and so lonely, because you're the only one going through it. You're the only one that can experience it. Even if you have a loved one right next to you, you are still going through it within yourself. That process can only be done by you. The outside can only support, but they cannot do it for us because they're not inside of us, right? But that whole process and how you come through it, right? If you go over it, if you circumvent it, if you run the other way, you're going to be in suffering your whole life. Even if you're pretending like you're not, it's going to come up at some point, whether it's through illness, a midlife crisis, it will come up. There is no way that we get away with this. So I really believe, and I've been through it myself, and it's why I share, is that if you go through the journey, and you're going to have to sit in the fire, and you're going to have to sit in the discomfort of it all, but on the other side, there is beauty. And so, I shared all of this, and it always ends on a moment of beauty. But what was so amazing, because one of my stories has been, I'm alone. I'm alone in this. And sometimes, like, I physically am, right? I have my daughter, but physically I'm the only adult going through this experience. And it's tiring. But I shared all of this, and I have a photo of me that's like, I have my hand on my face and I'm crying. I'm in tears. So it's a very vulnerable share, like a very exposing, transparent share. And I had like well over 100 comments. And the amount of personal messages that I had, and voice notes, and, friends that picked up the phone and called me. And I had just this flood of love, empathy, compassion, solidarity, support. I mean, even though I'm really yearning to meet my tribe in person, I so miss just like going out and having a tea with a friend and having a talk and having a hug. And, I'm physically on my own in that way. It was so amazing. I really recognized, wow, I have an incredible online community. And even though I'd like to have a real life community, my friends are scattered in different parts of the world, I felt so extraordinarily grateful, moved, touched to receive so much love. And the thing is the reason why is because I shared really vulnerably. I was so human in that moment. I was raw. I was real. I was honest. And guess what? When you do that, people go, oh, I feel that too. And all of a sudden, everyone's heart is connected because everyone is in their humanity. They're no longer pretending anymore. And so I get personal messages being like, thank you so much. I feel that way too. And then I have messages of just encouragement, reflecting back to me how they see me, and, reminding me of my strength and my resilience. Or just people saying, I love you. And these are strangers. Some of these people I've never met before. And it's like, this is when humans and humanity are so damn beautiful. That's the poetry of life. But if we want the poetry of life, we've got to be human. We can't be robots. This pretending, I'm fine. No, be real. But you know what? It takes courage. It takes so much courage to be human. And it especially takes courage, again, going against the grain in a society that says you need to be happy, you need to be perfect, you need to be flawless, you need to have no wrinkles, Botox, cellulite. It's such utter horse shit. And I think we can just drop it. Like, can we just drop the charade and just be who we are, and know that that's enough, and know that that's beautiful? And actually, even if we're in our pain and suffering, and I don't mean wallowing in kvetch. I mean, I did say at one point, I'm like, this is probably a good old kvetch, but actually, and I even put my hand up of like, this might make me sound like I'm a victim, but you know what? Right now I felt like a victim, and I was even honest about that. Like, I felt like a victim. I feel like this is a kvetch, but also it was this is what it's like to be human. And when it sucks and it's hard and it hurts and you can't take it anymore, and this is rock bottom and you've had enough, because I know we've all been there. And by being in the truth of that, by being in the power of vulnerability, and it is a power, I have learned that it is one of my superpowers. I do not see it as a weakness. It is an absolute superpower. And when I can be in the honesty and the authenticity of my vulnerability, and I can share, wow, the gift of receiving so much love, and the gift of touching somebody else's heart and them saying thank you because you've given words to my experience. And I'm not tooting my own horn here at all. That makes me so happy to know, okay, that person doesn't have to feel alone, or that there's a resonance or there's a solidarity in that. And that's when you really feel the interconnectivity, the oneness, the love that we innately are. So when we have these rock bottom moments, the beautiful part of it is it kind of is a forced surrender. And I wrote about that too. I was like, I'm so tired of being at the corner of surrender yet again. Like, are you going to help me out this time? But sometimes I think, well, are these rock bottom moments happening because we've been overwhelmed and stressed and going and going and going and all of these things? Yes, that is a part of it. And then another part of it is, I think it's like our being, our soul is, I've learned this again so many times over, still learning it, is like, let go, let go. You don't need to try so hard. You don't need to work so hard. I think we're learning how to do things very differently. We've been in a very linear, masculine trajectory. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? How do you get this? How do you reach that goal? How do you achieve this? That's actually very tiring. And I think we're learning to use our periphery vision. We're learning to use our intuition. We're learning to navigate life in a very different way using different senses. So I think it was also my being saying, stop trying so hard. Stop trying to make it happen. What if you just radically trust, right? Theme of the year, radically trust. Let go. And so when you have no more, you're forced to let go. And in that, when you finally let go, and then I was really fortunate to be held in such a basket of love, that then you melt into this soft spot of life. And it feels like silk. I wrote about this. It feels like silk. It feels warm and soft and gentle and comforting. And you realize you've actually always been held. You've always been in the lap of love and in the lap of peace. But when we get scared, when we get stressed, when we get, overwhelmed, we get stiff, we get rigid, and it's hard to be hugged when you're rigid. So we don't feel hugged and held by life because we're kind of like, ugh, when you try to hug someone that's a little bit like stiff, they're not receiving the hug, are they? They're resisting it. So if we want to be hugged and held by life, we've got to soften. We've got to relax. We've got to be soft. So that was also really exquisitely beautiful. It's like, the surrender, that wasn't a surrender that was like you go through the moment of surrender that feels like a despair, right? I can't take it anymore. I give up. But then when you really, truly let go, it feels so soft and gentle. It reminds me of the 2 times that I passed out, I blacked out, and it was like the most rejuvenating experience I've ever had. It felt like I had the most amazing holiday or the most amazing massage, and I came back so rejuvenated. So yeah, because those 30 seconds or however long, I let go of everything. So relaxing. Wow. So sometimes I wonder if these rock bottom moments are here to teach us, like, let go. Let go. You don't need to try so hard. And then the beautiful thing is the next day I had to deal with my tooth. So it took me 3-4 times. I called one dentist. They weren't taking people. I went to one. They weren't great. I couldn't see. I had to wait basically 2 days, but I made the appointment. I didn't feel great about it. Then I was trying to find another one. It was like a total ball ache just to find them on Google Maps. And then it was going to cost just to be seen. And that just didn't feel right either. And then I really just had prayed. I'd prayed that morning, and then I kind of prayed again and just said, please, angels, like, bring me to the right dentist. And then I just did a Google search because I was going off of like recommendations on Facebook. And I just did a Google search. And I scrolled down, and it was just an intuition. It was a feeling. It was called like biodental, or biodentist or something, And I thought, oh, okay, I like that. It's probably more natural. And found it very easily. It was in a lovely place. They were, and this is what I loved. The woman was German Swiss, and I'm Swiss German, my heritage. And so it's like, oh, and she could see, I had to wait around maybe 10, 15 minutes. They were so kind and so lovely. She saw me right away. She cemented my tooth back on. They were so sweet with my daughter. We were talking about getting a crown, and, the person that she uses is Swiss and in the very town, and he uses natural materials. And I just was like, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So my angels had sent me one of them. It sent me an angel. And that's what happens when we let go. That's what happens on the other side of hitting rock bottom. When we get to that point of like my human self and my ego just can't do it anymore. And we hand ourselves over to our soul. And this is a dance, right? It's hard to just do that every day, but I'm learning. I'm learning to do it. And I'm sure you are too. But when we get to that point where we do radically trust and we do stop trying so hard and we let go and we recognize that whatever our stories are, they're false, that actually we're not alone, that we are supported, that there's so much love, that you know what, human beings and humans are also really beautiful. The news will tell you otherwise. F them, you know, don't let them bring us down. We are beautiful beings that actually are very kind, compassionate, and caring. And I've seen it and felt it so many times over in my life to know that that is 100% true. And when we reach that space where we can just really soften into that, it's just beautiful. And that is the gift of coming through the other side of rock bottom. But recognizing that the most important part is in the releasing and letting go and softening, not in the wallowing, not in the, becoming the victim and staying in the victim. Yes, the victim will come through. Acknowledge it, honor it, respect it, but don't stay in it, right? We're moving through. We're moving through it by feeling it. And this is the other thing is when you share it like that, and it's not, a complaining, but it's like, this is what's going on for me. I'm putting it all on the line. I'm opening my arms wide open and saying, this is what's true for me. That's where the emotions get to just come through. They come through, you feel it, it's bloody intense, and then you release it. When we resist, when we get stuck in the complaining or the ignoring or the denying or the neglecting or the rejecting or the pretending, guess what? It stays there. It stays and stays and stays and stays. And actually, that's so much harder. That creates so much more suffering. When we let go, we feel the relief because we've moved through it. And so now I'm on the other side and I feel totally different. And some people might be like, well, God, you're all over the place. You're up and down. But actually, as a dear, dear, dear friend of mine says, Corinne, I always know you're going to be okay because you move through things so quickly. And the reason why I move through things is because I move through them. I don't ignore them. I don't distract. I move through them. And I've learned that over the last 20 years, right? So it takes practice. It really takes practice, and it takes staying. That's what I've learned to do is stay with it. It fucking hurts sometimes. It's scary. It's terrible, but the other side is beautiful. So I'm sharing this today. It's a really super long one, but I think it's an important one because I want you to know that whatever you're going through or have gone through or will go through, it's okay. It's normal. Welcome to being human. You're not alone. There's nothing you need to be ashamed of. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. None of that crap. You're not alone. You're having a human experience, and part of being human is we go through these hard times. And some of us might feel more than others, but I think we all have sensitivity. We all have vulnerability. We all have a heart. How barriered it is, that's another thing. And these moments of rock bottom give us an invitation to crack our heart open more. And I'm sure you've heard me say that we are strongest when our heart is open, not when it's protected. That's a personal, self-imposed prison. Yes, out of protection, but actually we're not free when we're protected. We're free when we're open. We're free when we're human and vulnerable and fully embodying the truth of who we are without any shame, without any apology. Trusting ourselves, loving ourselves, trusting our higher self, trusting the universe, trusting God, trusting others, trusting all of this and loving it all. You got to love it all, even the hard times. And when you do, the amount of love that will flood in, whether it's through people in your physical world, whether it's people through the internet, whether it's just the energy that is around you, because the veil is getting very thin, my friends. I can really feel it. There is so much unseen support, but we've got to ask for it, and we've got to allow ourselves to receive it. And I'm still learning how to not get like totally effed off with the universe, with God, with life. I'm still learning that. There are times where I'm still in a battle with it. And I'm trying to look at it through a different perspective. There's something else that I so want to share, and maybe I need to do this as the next podcast because this is getting long, but I will just drop the seed here. I have faced my wound since my 20s. I have dived into the shadow. And in the last years, I feel like I really pulled the thorn out. But a really big shift in perception, which was really illuminating for me the other day, was the story that I'm still holding on to, which is life is a struggle. I did my gene keys for the first time, and part of my life purpose is about this, is about sharing through my own struggle, through my own vulnerability, so that it connects other people. And I'll go into it next time, but I saw it as like, oh, this is what Richard Rudd would say, is that the very thing that you have found as I'm going to put it in my words, the very thing that you've thought is the obstacle is the way. The struggle is actually the catalyst for your gift. So I'm going to talk about that next week. Until then, the invitation is allow yourself to be human. That's it. Today was just a story of what it's like to be human. Give yourself the permission to just be human without judgment. Love it all. It's okay to be you. And believe you me, you will be so loved for that. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.